I honestly feel that with this car, I don't even think the biggest problem is going to be the price point. Like, never mind the fact that basically doubled the price, right, compared to what it was before.
Yeah.
So we had that car, which was introduced just like a day or a week before internationally we got the new generation.
Yeah. I mean, I want to believe we got the short end of the stick then.
But I
In,
think they were also testing the waters, so like maybe we don't. Kia was like, I don't want to take that much of a gamble at that point.
yeah. See, the problem is when you introduce a globally discontinued product,
Hmm.
you bring it at a price that seems too good to be true.
Hmm.
And then you basically set yourself up, with expectations of future customers that, hey, the next generation might possibly be around the same price point. Because you think about it, the formula for the Carnival's not changed. It was CKD then, it is CKD now.
Yeah.
But it costs twice as much.
Yeah, and that the one variable that comes into play is that even with the previous generation, so you had multiple variants with those. I think there were 4 different versions,
Yeah.
including that 9-seater and like 4 rows and whatnot. But even in that case, they started triggering a lot of sales once the discount started coming in.
Correct.
Because then you could still come into a place where somebody was like, okay, I'm at an Innova space. This may not seem like that much of a jump in comparison, and it's still a pretty big car.
And it also felt like an upgrade to the Innova back then.
Now also it does.
I mean,
It's a big difference, dude, in the cabin.
yeah, sure. I mean, for say someone who would use the first gen Innova
Hmm.
and not bought the Krista, this was, well within that means of stretch. Now, if I give you a hypothetical example, say you've been driving, say, a 2012, 2014 Krista or the prevailing Innova, because they run forever. Today, if you have to decide between, hey, do I want to buy a high cross or do I get this, that Delta's just gone.
Again, I'm telling you, this is not going to happen only because that Innova guy is not going to buy anything else. He's only going to
Fair.
stick with the Innova. That I think we tend to discount the whole brand power thing too much. We're getting too logical over here because we know people who will buy a Honda City because it's a Honda City. You could make any car, just call it a city. It's going to sell because it's a city. Same with Innova. There's a certain level of trust that comes where people will make compromises because they know what that name stands for.
There's that, but okay, chalo. Because you've asked me that, what according to you does the Carnival stand for? And if you had to sum it up in one sentence, what it would be?
To me, this version of the Carnival, which by the way is the brand new version, globally speaking also, they come fully loaded. Every single thing that this car gets, it gets. This car is the perfect middle ground, I feel, between boring and daring. And it's a bit weird to explain why. The boring thing honestly doesn't have anything specifically to do with the Carnival itself.
Okay.
It is the category of car. Because MPVs, no matter which way you put it, are not the most sexy kind of cars.
Sure.
Because you look at, I'm not going to get into the international context here because you have those connotations of soccer mom car or whatever, but it's always viewed as a product that you buy with a need first,
Yeah.
and everything else is a garnish around it.
Utility precedes everything for this body style.
It's too rationalistic,
Fair.
which is not a bad thing. It's just what it is. But if you look at, let's broaden our scale of what we'll call an MPV here. But if you look at what we had the Omni Kidnapper Special. We've got the Eco still selling somehow,
Still
meeting
the new Kidnapper Special.
Yeah, Kidnapper Special, and ironically a school van also, and also an ambulance, also a police vehicle, also a cargo transportation vehicle.
मारेंगे भी हम, बचाएंगे भी हम.
Ha,
Safety. हाँ.
multitasking.
Yeah.
Then you have the Ertiga / Rumion. You have the Kia Carens. Carens is actually a very interesting point for me when it comes to MPVs. Because that elucidates my point as to why it's not really got the sex appeal. Because logically speaking, if you look at the Carens and the Seltos, the Carens is doing practically everything a Seltos does. Maybe there's a few features here and there in between, but you're getting greater practicality. You're getting the exact same powertrain options. It will be more sensible for a family buyer. But with all those virtues put in place, somebody who wants a Seltos is still going to buy a Seltos.
Yeah, one of the world's greatest mysteries is why is a bigger car like the Carens cheaper than a Seltos?
I think that has to do with the platform fit, for which whatever reason the Koreans are always very ambiguous. They'll never tell you what exactly it's based on. But from there you move to the Innova Hi-Cross, the Innova Krista, which have their own sort of space which is entirely theirs. And now the Carnival has done, I think, the exact same thing.
Okay.
Kia knows that there's no chance we can compete with the Innova. In terms of branding and all, it's got a reputation that's too strong. In terms of pricing, it's a space that they cannot enter into in the first place.
Correct.
So they're like, let's get our own Innovafication, by moving into a large price space. I think the one thing that you had mentioned earlier, right, that the Carnival earlier was possibly one of the most expensive cars that somebody would have had in their garage. Now it's going to a position where it's going to be their cheapest.
Possibly the cheapest, because the way I viewed the previous Carnival was that, okay, the person might have multiple vehicles in the garage, but the Carnival was more likely to be the most expensive one. कि ठीक है, छोटा Vento है, Rapid है, whatever, you know, like a Honda City, maybe another small hatchback, but the Carnival is the large family car. Now, where Kia's positioned the new Carnival, which is 75 lakh rupees on road, give or take,
Yeah.
64 lakh X. That is going to end up hobnobbing with the S classes, 7 series, GLSs, and whatnot in these ultra rich garages. Where imagine a 75 lakh rupee car being the second or the third car in the house.
Yeah.
That is the exact use case for that car. Our discussion with Nabil yesterday was hosting the Car Dekho video. I said, ki, okay, it's moved firmly out of aspirational territory to firmly into luxury car territory.
Yeah.
And despite that, it is one of those cars where I think you've chosen the term boring and daring very, very well, where it fits into this context as well. It is daring you to be practical while spending luxury car money.
Exactly, which is why your considerations also change, right? If you ask us for a justification, why does this Carnival cost almost twice or basically twice as much as the previous version did? There's no direct answer where you can equate it into, okay, it's giving you because so many more features, new platform, new tech, engine, powertrain options. No, because the experiential points are very similar compared to that Carnival, right? It was as practical, as spacious, that stuff is still there. And before we get into the further details of the product itself, certain things to put across, it only comes with one variant, that is the limousine, not like the previous
Limousine
generation.
Plus.
Limousine Plus. That's because of the fact that I think 80-85% by what they were saying of the demand of the previous version was any case going towards that. So Kia's like, let's not bother with too many variants. Same applies for the color options. You can have any color you want
As long as it's black or white. Beautiful.
Because again, that was what they were saying, that they had more options, but most people are opting between these two anyway, so it just makes sense from a business case justification. And the engine is only the diesel.
Yeah.
There is a hybrid being considered. Like if they do go with petrol, they're not going to come in with just a BOD petrol that's going to be too fuel inefficient for this size of a car.
It won't be an NA petrol. It won't be just a turbo petrol. Kia globally has hybrid tech.
I think this one gets a 1.6 hybrid.
Yeah, which I'm not sure how that pans out, considering the Innova has a 2-liter hybrid at a substantially cheaper price point. But if Kia chooses to go petrol on the Carnival, it will be a hybrid. That is something that we can say with some reasonable amount of surety.
Cool.
Right? Now let's try and dissect the Carnival, because there is genuinely, literally, per square foot basis, a lot of it to dissect. Let's start with the way it looks. Okay, and
I love it. I love the looks so much. This is where I'm getting with that daring bit, because it's like, how can I fall in love with an MPV so much? It is sexy. It's not just big. It genuinely does look good.
For something that feels like it was made with just a scale, right? Something that is so boxy. I am almost embarrassed to admit how much I like it. It looks more SUV than MPV in person, especially if you view it dead front. But if you move to the side, you're like, oh wait,
where did the height go?
Where did the height go? And when you move to the rear, it is just one vertical slab, right? Also, I'm going to put an image into your head. Imagine that the rear glass and the glass after the D pillar, the third row glass, is not there. Basically, the portion after the C pillar.
After the silver bit.
Yeah. You will notice that the Carnival might just look very sexy as a pickup truck.
Yeah, the Ute, as the Aussies call it.
Right. Anyway, let's get into the details. Up front, what do you think about it?
For me, what I like is, apart from the size of it, and obviously has the drama of that LED light over here, quad LEDs, where you have the DRLs up top, they double up as the indicators, the low beams that are at the top two, the high beam that are at the bottom two, along with the LED fog lights right at the bottom.
Yeah.
And it has that tiger nose grill and whatnot. But for me, what stands out about the Carnival is how Kia has delivered that family look without making it look like Control-C, Control-V all over again. Because this is happening even with luxury brands, right? Most people won't be able to tell apart the new range of Mercedes-Benz cars, for example. The EQ style language, for example, has made them look very homogeneous. Here, yes, they have that similar pattern with the Sonnet, with the Seltos, to some degree with the Carnival and with this as well. But they look like very distinctive cars by themselves.
Yeah.
So like, you're not, even if it didn't have the size, or maybe the size does contribute greatly, it looks like a very distinctive vehicle while still being very decidedly a Kia.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot shy away from the fact that Kia's been very daring, so as to say, in their design approach. Whether it was with their EVs, like the EV6 looks like it looks like a UFO. The EV9 is just so much car to process. That philosophy has trickled down very well onto the Carnival, and onto the side. It amuses me that the car is nearly 17 feet long.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
3 meters something is the wheelbase alone
yeah, you could fit a Comet between the
with
wheelbase
space to spare.
with space to spare. The car is so large that it makes 18-inch wheels look terribly small.
Yeah.
We thought the Innova Hycross looked under tired because of its size. Wait till you look at a Carnival in person. And even at the rear, the way that they've done the connected lighting, thank God they've done the connected lighting. Otherwise, there would have just been a slab of metal that, that wouldn't be as appealing to look at. Small, I don't want to call it an annoyance, but I don't know why Kia skipped out on dynamic turn indicators. That is like a really cool feature I now want on the car.
See, I think we have got a nitpicking pass because
I mean-
Kia, just to tell you this, right? Kia, with the price positioning of this car, has said that we are not looking at it from a volume perspective.
Sure.
Although getting some 2000 something odd bookings for a car this expensive, and by what they're claiming, not having much attrition after the prices were announced because dealers were indicative of the price beforehand. In fact, they've got some 30-40 bookings to top, and this car is somehow sold till 2025 end or whatever.
Yeah.
You are charging this much money, nitpick the daylights out of it. You fully have the right to.
No, because I think, see, on the whole, I would have liked more color options because corporate gray is missing. I think वो थोड़ा gray चाहिए life में. Second, dynamic turn indicators I want. Third, I want larger wheels. I know it'll mess with the ride, but that is something we'll get to later.
No, 18 बहुत है. It's
Yeah.
enough. I don't care about. It's got enough presence with the car itself. Topping it off with like 21s or something, yes, it will look sexy, but then what's the point if
No,
you get
19s would look good. And while I am complaining, I think this design looks too similar to the Alcazars, the pre-facelift. Anyway.
Okay, the tire wala on NH8 agrees.
Okay. So exterior done with. I want to say it is massive. It has tremendous road presence. There is no outright bling on the car. There is dark chrome that's used, which gets a pass from me. One problem, if you live in Mumbai or in Bangalore, and if you have to swim through really bad traffic, the size might just cause you to sweat. Good thing that you might not actually be sweating, it will be your driver.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And the driver is a nice segue to move into the interior and move into the front half of the cabin. And let's just generally talk about first colors. Tan and black.
I like it.
A staple luxury combination, and I think the best luxury combination there is. What Kia has done with the materials is interesting. It is acceptable, but it's not exciting.
Yeah, see, what they've got right with this shift is visually it does look a lot more premium than the Carnival that it's replacing.
Yeah.
But the touch and feel bits is still typical Kia.
Yeah.
And this is something that we also saw when we had explored the Kia EV9 when they had introduced both these cars. Where you sit inside and you do have a lot of wow, you do have a lot of kit. But if you sit in a GLC, let's say compared to a Carnival, you sit inside a GLC, a GLA, an Audi, BMW, whatever you're getting at the same price point. The touch and feel of the bits is going to be vastly different.
Correct.
Like they're not cheap. It's not that it feels cheap or something, but it's just about okay. It's not making some massive step up compared to a Kia Seltos in terms of touch and feel.
Yeah.
Perceived quality is still going to be good, but that's largely to do with the design of what you're seeing. It's not so much with the touch and feel. And there is also a little bit of an inconsistency over there. Tan and black looks good. You have leatherette padding on the door pads, but only at the front, not at the rear where people who buy this car are going to be sitting. Still a little bit of scratchy plastic over there. It doesn't feel as rich as it ought to, which is fine if you're selling this car at, let's say, 50 lakh on road.
Yeah.
I would still give it a little bit of a pass. But at 65 lakh rupees ex showroom, 75 on road, this becomes slightly glaring, which to be fair is also the case with something like an Innova Hycross.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like its price.
On that topic, I think the Innova Hycross feels more out of place as a 35-37 lakh rupee car than a Kia Carnival feels as a 75 lakh rupee car.
I think that also has a lot to do with just the design.
Design and interior quality. But I want to circle back to design. You would want to believe that there is a lot of commonality between the Carnival and the cheaper Kias, let's call them that way, right? Or the more affordable Kias, if you want to be politically correct. Experience is vastly different. Primarily because of design. The curved display is something that is new to a relatively mass market Kia, and it is not just a curved bezel with straight screens, where a few manufacturers have tried to do that.
Hyundai.
This actually has twin curved displays and genuinely very good, high quality, crisp, ekdam khakra level display they've got.
Khakra.
Khakra hi hai, no?
Okay, I am not familiar with this terminology.
How does he not know what a khakra is?
I live close to Carnival, but I don't know.
Guju boys in the comment, please get him. Anyway, there is a new software / theme / OS that both the displays are running, which visually looks fantastic. They've got that same touch panel that switches between being media control and climate control lower down. The steering wheel is also like nice chonky unit. The power window switches feel nice, they feel premium. Touch and feel is not bad. You kind of get the sense that this car was developed with America in mind.
Yeah.
Just when you sit in the front seat, we'll get to the seat themselves, but the amount of space in terms of storage that the Carnival offers up front, and the size of the damn cup holders, just that.
Yeah. Those gallon-sized takeaway, this thing that you get from US drive-thrus, for example.
Yeah, you know that fad of people buying those massive Stanley cups. It's designed for that.
Yeah.
Your McDonald's, Starbucks feels inadequate in those cups, in those cup holders. There's a lot of storage space up front in the door bins. The bottle holder in the door is surprisingly slim and at an angle, but there's a lot of space in the central armrest, a small cubby there. The seats, front seats, big man, what are your thoughts?
My only complaint is that I would have wanted more under thigh support. And I'm talking maybe an inch or two. This is not specific to just the driver's seat, every seat in this car.
Yeah.
That 1 or 2 inches more would have made that little bit of a difference when you're living with it. Because you can't take, at least this is specific to me, where I can't take the driver's seat all the way back as much as I would have liked to sort of counter this drawback a little bit. So I don't feel like I have the ideal support. I can still manage for someone of my height, but I don't see this being an issue, at least in the Indian context, because most drivers are going to be sub 6 feet tall, which means this is going to be a nice little sofa experience for them. In fact, for people who are slightly on the slimmer side, they might have wanted the seats to be a little bit narrower to tuck them a little bit, because like you said, the America reference, this is a great seat for people of a larger build, save for the under thigh support, which could have been a little bit larger. And the seats themselves, they're powered in the front, and the memory setting, you get 2 of them for the driver. Yes, they are ventilated. Yes, they are cool. And I like how they've integrated the buttons for that also. They've decomplicated things. So it's like the same little toggle switch on either side in the center console itself. You push it up, it gives you the seat heating. So 1, 2, 3 to go down. And same with the seat ventilation, where it's starting off with the maximum setting.
Yeah.
So it's maximum blower speed and you reduce it if you want, and maximum heating and you reduce it if you want. Oddly enough, I like seat heating. Like, we've managed to complain a lot ki, oh, why do you need seat heating in India?
You do.
We were driving in Bangalore. It wasn't that cold, but it feels nice.
It does. See, okay, my first experience with seat heating was in a Skoda Laura, where we've done maybe 600, 700 kilometers. And we're driving across Rajasthan after a really long and tiring day. A nice hot feeling on the back. It just feels relaxing. Yes, it is meant for colder conditions, but this is a use case.
But we do have, I think as Mumbaikars, we deny the possibility of winter in India. That's not the case. Just because our winter is those 2 kilometers that you drive past RA Colony where the temperature drops by 4 degrees 1 or 2 days in December, that doesn't mean the rest of the country doesn't have cold climate.
Yeah. So winter exists. And I want to move on to the second row experience now, which I think is the highlight of the car.
I think we should tackle the infotainment bit first.
Oh, sure.
Since we are in the front row itself.
Sure.
So 12.3 inch screens, dual of them. You have displays on the instrument cluster that will correspond to the drive mode, or you can preset them. The difference over there is not massive. Sport mode's got slightly different fonts.
It's just colors. It's just colors.
Colors, and the font also changes with sport mode in the instrument cluster. The infotainment system is not got the same issue that we've seen with other Hyundai Kias, with the 12.3 or the larger display in general does not support wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You do get that over here. The infotainment system also gives you different options that you can access. So you can control your 64 color ambient lighting. It is more visible at night.
Yeah.
And it is, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but if you're sitting in the second row seat,
Yeah.
from there, the ambient lighting effect is a little bit more apparent than you would be when you're sitting in the front row, because you've got that underline for the AC panel, you've got those little panels in the door itself. So it's something you can appreciate from the back seat, which is a good thing. And you can also do certain controls for the driver. So the driver can obviously operate the power door controls from either side, the sunroofs. They can also control the seats for the second row.
Yeah.
So if you want to control the way, if you're too lazy to press a button or it's not that accessible or something, you can ask the driver to switch on your ventilation, switch on your heating. They can also adjust everything on your second row seat.
Yeah.
So the backrest, the sort of gravitational position, whatever they call the
relaxed
angle of the
mode,
seat,
yeah.
the ottoman, all those settings can be controlled. The only caveat there being, if the car is in drive, it can't happen. You have to be in park.
Yeah, and so the bottom line here is don't piss your driver off, because he can set the heating to full and put you in a contorted position if he wants repeatedly. So don't do that. But having those controls there is handy. You can also lock the power sliding doors from the front. So it's great if you've got kids in the back and you don't want them opening the doors, not having access to that function at all. You've got 3-zone climate control again, which can be locked from the front. 3-zone climate control is for the driver, for the co-driver, and the driver's one zone, the co-driver's one zone, and the rest of the car is one zone. So that is how you've got 3 zones.
The driver can also control the rear AC, if you want them to fiddle around with it.
So that is, all of that is possible. It's paired with an 8-speaker Bose sound system. Audio quality is acceptable.
Yeah.
Nothing
exceptional.
Yeah, nothing exceptional, nothing substantially different from what you expect. Of course, the car is larger than most living rooms in Mumbai, so getting the sound staging right, getting the kind of output that you want, especially in a car like this where probably the rear focus is higher, especially in a market like India. It is a tough thing to crack, but they've done it.
It's also because the seating position at the rear can change by so much.
Yeah.
The sound staging perfection is not always there, but there are certain points that when we might as well get into the second row now, since I think we've covered everything up front. They've managed to get the right amount of focus even with the infotainment system, where certain bits of attention to detail will give you that experience, like the placement of one of the speakers being somewhere on the C pillar, I believe.
It's right here.
So when you're in that relaxed position, it's right here. So you can enjoy the music experience right there. And first of all, tell me this, right? When we're getting into the second row, how easy do you find it for someone of your height?
Getting in and out? Getting in and out is fairly easy, but bear in mind our test car had the accessory side step. Without it, I'll be comfortable. I don't think my mom will be comfortable.
I know my mom won't.
Because it's a bit of a climb. Second, like we've discussed, throughout the car, the floor and the seat base are quite close to each other. So not having that space to kind of, move around might get a little tricky for, those who are older. For me, I think I'm fine just hopping into the seat, not really an issue. When I'm in the seat, that seat is something else. I might just prefer that to this, in fact. Lot of space. Like, I tried to put myself in a position where I did not have space and I failed.
How does that work?
With the front seat all the way, or with the front seat set to your position, my knee will barely touch just about graze the rear with the second row at its minimum position. Now, obviously, I can move the rear seat back. I can move the rear seat side by side. I can get my ottoman up. I can have a recline function. The sheer amount of space there is and the combinations that you can use is genuinely mind-boggling.
Let's run through them. What all can you do with the second row seats?
Okay, so first things first, you can slide them fore aft.
That's manual.
That is manual. You can move them left to right, which is also manual. You can raise the seat base, which is powered. You can drop the recline
of the backrest here.
Okay. You can extend or bring back the ottoman.
And adjust the upward and downward motion of that as well.
And the entire seat, when you put it into the relax mode, the entire seat pivots like that and the ottoman extends. So you can genuinely laze around. if anyone's visited Delhi airport, they have those lazy loungers.
They're always occupied.
Yeah, which are always occupied. That is probably the closest analogy that I can give to as to how that relax mode feels like. It just literally suspends you, where someone even his size is struggling to touch the front seat. I could see him do this.
So that is what is my absolute standout point for this car, which will become a major reason why people will want to buy it. Because yes, we have a lot of cars that focus on the rear seat. That is in terms of giving you a certain degree of control, sunblind, stuff like that, little room to stretch out. This is beyond excessive.
Yeah.
Because I can set it all the way back, and this is especially best if you have the third row seat folded down.
Yeah.
Where you put the backrest all the way down, pull it all the way back, angle it in the most relaxed position, put the ottoman out all the way, put the front passenger seat all the way ahead with the backrest tilted down, which is the most position that you'll find S classes and 7 series is in. I am able to stretch out completely with my feet dangling, and this is something I could not do in an S class, in a 7 series, in a GLS Maybach, even in the Toyota Velfire.
Yeah.
Someone of my height cannot do that. It does not go as far back as this thing does, because I don't know, it utilizes the space available in that bit extra way that is ideal for someone like me. So if me with all of my 200 centimeters of human length can be comfortable here, it's done. I can't draw any parallel here. I am so incredibly comfortable for two reasons, not just my height. Even for someone who's got more girth like me, who's fat like me, the Velfire seat are kind of like if you've been in Indigo's airlines, the
XL
A320s.
seats, yeah.
XL row 1 is got those little boxy type container sides. If you get the emergency exit row, it's still kind of open, so you can spread out a little bit more easily. The Velfire had that issue, by what I remember, that it's got a little bit of a tuck in between. So if you're fit, it's fine. If you're overweight like me, at that case it becomes a little bit more difficult. That is one issue that gets taken care of over here, that even if you're slightly wider or broader, you will be comfortable in these seats even then. The one catch is that when you're in the regular seating position, where you're not in that fully relaxed position, where you've got when you're using it as a 6 or 7 seater outright, at that time when you're in the most straight upright position, headroom is a little bit lacking for me. I feel even that was the case for you as well, where it's not a lot of space up top.
Especially given that it's got two sunroofs, right? It's got two individual sunroofs, front and rear.
Both of which open.
Yeah, both of which open individually if required. That does eat into headroom, and even with the seat, at a very neutral position, I would also want to say that my head was a little too close to the roof, and a little more headroom would have been great. But someone your size has an inherent advantage in the rear seat of the Carnival, which normal sized people won't have. Is that you can reach stuff easily, which is genuinely a bit of a bother otherwise. The seat ventilation controls or the power window switch is right up front on the door card. If you're relaxing, forget about trying to reach it. The bottle holder you cannot reach. There is no real place to store your phone except for in the later half, let's call it, of the front armrest, where there are a couple of cup holders. That too is a stretch. There is one phone holder in the center. There's no central armrest as such. Both individual captain seats get two armrests each. So there's no utility space in the center. There's no fold out tray where you can keep your phone or your coffee.
Basically something that's attached to the seat itself that will move along with the seat while you
so
move.
that it can flip up and you could use that. There is a fold out tray that is an accessory. You can fit that to the co-driver seat, but that to the damn co-driver seat itself is a reach.
Basically, these are issues that will come up when you're in that fully or partly reclined position, in that relaxed position. If you're sitting in the regular state in that upright position, fine, stuff is still within reach. And I think that is what most of it has been designed for. That in the default setting, where the seat is going to be in that position, you can still reach the cup holders, you can reach the seat heating and ventilation controls, you can manage everything quite easily. But when you're in that fully reclined position, then everything becomes a little bit of a stretch, and I'm not entirely sure what can be the ideal solution for this, because there are certain things that do come into play to work as a benefit. That if you're in that fully reclined position, on your left side, the third row storage spaces become accessible. So you can still tuck in your phone or cup holder or something over there. It's not ideal, it's just something to bear in mind that this can be a thing that you have to live with. I don't see this as a reason to not consider this car, not by a long shot.
So overall, I feel under 1 crore, if you want the most amount of space and the most seat comfort, I think the Carnival is right up there and by a significant margin. But it's not all rosy.
Couple of misses are still there.
Hmm.
So you do have a rear sunblind, sizable one for that kind of window. But when you're in that most relaxed position, you still have a little bit of a gap behind that sunblind. So it'll let some amount of light in, and plus when you're at a traffic signal and somebody's coming up to sell you pens, tissues, or for whatever reason, world maps, they're going to make that little bit of awkward eye contact that's going to be a little bit difficult to avoid. Then there are misses compared to the Carnival itself.
Yeah.
So you had a 2-pin plug point underneath the front console earlier available for your laptops or larger devices. That's not there anymore. You do have two Type-C USB chargers. They're there up front as well as the rear. And another miss is no multimedia infotainment screen or anything of that sort. When you're moving to a higher price point, why is it that you're going down on features in comparison? Like, I think that can still be circumvented to some extent if you got like a iPad holder or something that you want to place over there, but most likely you're just going to keep that device with yourself and use it immediately proximal. So it's very good on space, decent enough on practicality. Amenities as such are missing to some extent to give you that added level of luxury experience when it comes to the second row. But by and far, the amount of space you get, how practical it is, how it lets you stretch out, even if you're exceptionally large, there's just no comparing this with anything else you can get for the same kind of money.
I would have wanted to be true of the third row as well, but it's not entirely like that. Again, I'll set context. So, someone of my size, roughly 6 feet tall,
5'11".
If I set the driver's seat to my driving position, if I set the rear seat to where I've got appreciable knee room, I am very comfortable in the third row. Can I do a long-ish trip, a Mumbai-Pune trip in this? I can. Would I want to? Possibly not. Because the issue of not having under thigh is slightly amplified in the third row. So you're sitting a little more knees up than you are, because you're already sitting slightly knees up in the first and the second row.
Yeah.
In the third row, it is a little more amplified. Kia says the third row of the Carnival can fit 3 occupants.
Slim ones, probably.
Us, no chance, but because बकायदा 3 headrests दिया हुआ है वहाँ पे. So 3 occupants is possible. The car is wide enough. If there are average size people, the Carnival can be used as a 7-seater. In terms of amenities, there's not much, not that you expect too much here. Funnily enough, you've got sun blinds for your quarter glasses.
Yeah.
You've got cup holders. There are Type-C USB chargers there. And pretty much that's about it. In terms of space, like I said, adult will be comfortable here, but not for super long journeys. Kids will have absolutely zero issues.
Yeah, to give you proper context of what kind of space you have available, 6 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot.
Possible.
All 3 rows. It's not just possible, because that's feasible for a lot of different cars. Even the Innova does a great job of seating people who are tall in each seat row. It's the amount of space you have left over afterwards.
Yeah.
That is the exception over here with the car which has the size of the Carnival. One more thing that should be mentioned here is that the second row AC controls, they're on the right side.
Yeah.
Not where chauffeur-driven owners would probably be sitting in terms of their proximity. There are AC vents in the third row as well, which can double up as your AC vents for the head when you have that fully relaxed position. And like I said before, if you want to get the full benefit of what that relaxed mode can do, you have to fold the third row down.
Yeah.
So that way, it is definitely a very good 6 or 7-seater car. I think the use case over here primarily is going to be driver plus Malik Saab.
Yes.
Or Malkin Saab. Malkin Saab?
Sahiba.
Or Sahiba. And just Malkin, let's call it Malkin only. And they're going to be sitting at the back seat. The third row usage is going to be for the household help or somebody who's going to be coming along for these road trips. Which is why we again say that this is probably going to be the second or third car in giving company to existing large luxury 7-seaters or luxury sedans. The one big kick that you get from this car is that universally this statement applies. It's not difficult to get a car that can seat 6 or 7 people in this country. It's very difficult to get, or basically impossible to get, a 6 or 7-seater that can take people plus their luggage.
Yeah.
That is going to be a major reason for considering the Carnival, because the boot is so cavernous that with the third row in place, not folded away, in a comfortable seating position, him and I got into the boot.
Yeah. That was genuinely surprising, that for what looks visually, that it might not be all that spacious. Okay, I was expecting one of us to fit there. For the two of us to sit palti maar ke aaram se, that was a genuine surprise. If you talk in terms of actual bags, you can possibly fit 5 cabin size trolley bags straight up,
Easily.
and then you can stack your backpacks and whatnot, your duffels, with ease. So 7 people and their luggage is very, very easy.
So like full, let's call them, if you're going to get your NRI return cousins or siblings or somebody from overseas, if you have 7 people on board, you can get large suitcases,
Yeah.
the check-in size suitcases, and still have a little bit of space to spare. I think
Yeah.
1 or 2 large suitcases plus space to spare is what you're looking at.
Very
so
easy.
if you divide your luggage intelligently, there's practically everything that you want, you can get in there quite easily.
No, what I also like is the mechanism that Kia's provided to, flip the third row down and use it. So you can, you tug at a lever and you pull the seat back, and the seat kind of collapses into itself and then becomes your new floor.
That's flat.
That's flat. So it is in line roughly with the bumper lip, and you get a properly flat storage area where you can possibly store 6 or 7 of us. There is so much space that I don't think you will ever need to move the second row away to have more space.
No.
And also, in case you're wondering, the second row does not fold flat, or none of that happens.
Yeah, the third row access is only from in between the front two seats, because you can pull the second row seat ahead and lower the aperture of the backrest, but the gap over there is only either large enough for someone as slim as Paris Hilton or compact as Rajpal Yadav. Nobody is going to be able to get through there, not even kids in general. Which is why you have that seating position, right, where you have the slide adjustment side by side. When you put it towards the side, the seat's 4.5 travel adjustment is limited.
Yeah.
That is for seating 6 or 7 people, because you need third row access. When you have them in between, where the setting is a little bit more intimate, at that point you're not expecting people to get back into the third row after that.
I'm still thinking about Rajpal Yadav and Paris Hilton. Anyway, so are we done with space? Boot space is done. Oh, one last thing. You will not find the spare wheel under the boot floor. The spare wheel is positioned on the right under the second row roughly, which you can access. Basically, you can unwind a nut and the spare wheel will come down and you can use that. So that's space done, that's practicality done, that's boot space done.
One point I have to add about this practicality, I can see this being a major reason why business owners will want this car.
Okay.
Because the amount of documentation, goods and all that you can carry while you're going along, like let's say you're a lawyer, you have a litany of just paperwork along with you, boxes and boxes filled with them when you're sitting in the second row. The amount of space you have available to store that stuff is incredible.
That is an oddly specific use case.
What, lawyers?
Yeah, I mean boxes of paperwork. Sure, but okay. My
What did you think I was referring to?
No, so hey, if I have a huge textile business, would I dump yarns and yarns of raw material in the boot? Possibly not. Not in a 75 lakh rupee car. Paper, sure.
75 lakh rupees for you, but this is the second car for someone who's got a 4 crore rupee car.
Fair. By that logic, sure. Okay. So we're done with the space, the practicality, all the boring bits. Okay. Do you want to get to the very exciting bit of how the car drives?
It drives.
That's all the excitement there is.
Yeah, it's got a diesel engine. It makes somewhere, I think, short of 195 horsepower, somewhere 441 Newton meters of torque. It has an automatic transmission that gets the job done. It's not super responsive. Yes, you have paddle shifters. Will you need them? I don't think so, because it's going to make the experience a little bit jerky for whoever's seated behind, because this car is meant to be driven in the most boring way possible. Not only to make sure that the experience is comfortable for whoever's seated at the back, it's also because there's so much car that if you drive this enthusiastically, it will behave like a large car that's being driven enthusiastically, which means you will not be comfortable, which means even in the driver's position, you're going to be second guessing yourself. So it's like, keep your movements peaceful. It'll shift smoothly enough. It'll get through every single road calmly. It's going to be a comfortable experience. Yes, you can tell it's a diesel engine.
Yeah, so that is my primary concern with it. Okay, for a car that is so focused on relaxation, I think Kia should have done a better job in the NVH department. The insulation for me is just not up to the mark.
Noise specifically,
and it is irrespective of whether I am in the driver's seat or if I am in the Sage seat.
It's more amplified in the second and third row though. The wheel well noises are being picked up more.
But for different reasons. Right up front, you hear the engine. and you hear it despite there being music played inside the car. In the rear, because if you're in the relax mode, your head is almost practically above the rear wheel well. So you hear a lot of the road noise and stuff that's coming in.
And
It
this
just
was
does not feel pleasant.
this was around Nandi Hills in Bangalore, where the roads were dry. It was not like raining. There was no gravel or anything. So
Yeah.
those finer small points that come up in different weather conditions, we weren't facing that. So if you're observing this in this condition,
In what is technically best case scenario,
yeah, exactly.
it
That's
can
what
only
it is.
get worse from that.
Yeah, roads were smooth as well. So no imperfections in the road to pick up any further noises as well. So it just needs that added level of insulation that would have made that experience more calming, because this is a major reason why people buy luxury cars, right?
Yeah.
The noise insulation and the peaceful experience you get inside the cabin is something that you can only experience and understand, and it makes a world of difference when you're living with the car. And I feel like Kia has not done the greatest job on this front, where they
Yeah.
need to make that improvement, even if it's specific to only India cars.
One point I want to add about the Carnival's drive experience is something that the driver will appreciate, is that the car has this knack of shrinking itself around you. You don't feel like you're driving a mammoth.
Yeah,
For the most part, like
the
right
steering.
up to the point where you have to take a U-turn, but the controls are light. You're very quickly aware of where the four corners of the cars are. The mirrors are jumbo sized, and at no point, and the inputs from the ADAS are gentle, and you always know what's in your periphery, because you genuinely need all the electronic aids you can get when you're driving a 5.2 meter long car. Is it easy to drive? Yes, but with its caveats. Like taking a U-turn. If I'm not mistaken, the turning radius is what,
5 or 5.2 meters.
No, it's 5.8 if I'm not mistaken, and that is massive. That is 2.5, 3 lanes almost to take a full U-turn.
Basically, it's a car that could have benefited with rear wheel steering, at least in our context.
Possibly. And again, this brings me back to people living in crowded cities, people who have swanky houses but really tight parking spots.
Yeah.
This will be a headache for you to park and to drive in congested conditions. There is no escaping that. It is a separate story that it is a headache that your driver has to look after and not you. But please be mindful, this is going to happen, and the sensors are sensitive, so it will beep and bong and annoy you a bit. But that is sadly the reality of driving such a large car in a country like ours. Long and short of the drive experience is that it's a car, it drives, and that be mindful while driving a 5.2 meter car.
Yeah, I would elaborate it this way, that if you're looking at gentle city driving, cruising, it's fine. Highway overtakes also, it has the performance, but when you give it a little bit of extra throttle for those overtakes, it's more audible.
Yeah.
And it's not the most refined experience, because ultimately it is still very much a diesel. Same way, getting up to 100, 120 is easy, but if you're going from 100 to 120 to make a quick overtake, you're going to have to stress the engine a little bit, and it is audible in those situations. Secondly, the braking. You need to be aware that this is a big, heavy car.
Yeah.
So if you're used to driving your, let's say, Audi Q3 or Mercedes GLC or something, don't treat it like that when it comes to braking. Give yourself that added bit of distance and responsiveness, because it is a large car and will behave as such. And this applies to the ride quality as well. The ride quality, I found it to be comfortable. Granted, we were looking at largely great roads.
Yeah.
So on open highways, when you're driving at 100, 120, at least the ones that are built properly, not like the Mumbai-Pune expressway where the concrete surface can become a little bit bumpy, very smooth. Didn't feel like there was a lot of body roll, didn't feel like it was too soft where it was hopping or something like that,
Yeah.
even over undulations. Very composed, very comfortable to be driven in as well as drive. And at the same time, you have to account for the fact that this wheelbase being long, even with that 180-ish millimeters of ground clearance, which is unladen, larger speed breakers and all, you can clear them, but you need to take them slowly.
Yeah. At no point did I find myself, doing this while driving the Carnival. I was confident that it'll make it through, whatever nasty speed breakers. I don't think Bangalore has any nasty speed
There
breakers.
is one exactly diagonally opposite the Nandi Hills entrance. That highway that goes towards the inner part of the city. I don't know the directions exactly.
Yeah.
But when you go down that road, literally the access point, you're met with two very large speed breakers. But it managed to clear them. Obviously, you have to be feathering the throttle, where a Fortuner next to me is just going to be like going right past.
No, but also we were driving cars with the optional side step, which lowers the ground clearance. But a stock Carnival would probably sail through comfortably in most situations, despite the long wheelbase. And talking about handling, talking about how it handles corners and the precision of the steering, please don't. Do not try doing that. It's not built for it, and we didn't bother doing it either. If you decide to do it, uh, I don't know, man. Not every car is meant for everything. That is what I've learned. Uh, so yeah, do you want to move on to ADAS?
Yeah, I think we tested out adaptive cruise control. I used lane keeping assist. Blind spot monitoring was going off every now and then. Rear cross traffic alert also beeped and bonged at points, but didn't really get to explore it much because we were on the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
It is typical Kia ADAS, where they've done the best possible job, but the limitations ultimately are decided by the traffic around us.
Yeah.
So on an open highway, like the ones that we had near Nandi Hills, setting cruise control to 100 where the roads are curving, also it's managing to keep dead center with the right amount of corrective inputs. It feels very organic in that sense. But the second you come up to a car, a truck that's, about to slow you down and you're not going to switch lanes or something, the motion feels a little bit abrupt. It feels a little bit unnatural. It feels like you have to pay an extra bit of attention to make that lane switch. And if you're, let's say, in the slow lane, there's a truck in the overtaking lane, somebody's trying to get through as they normally do on Indian highways. Like we had the situation where I was driving, Nabil was giving the rear seat PTC, and there was a truck that was blocking the overtaking lane. And ETO's cab went through, and he was obviously, it's a little bit close, not ideal, but very much normal by Indian conditions. Where I was driving and the car, and it was sounding like the kind of braking input you get when you're slamming the brakes for ABS to kick in.
Yeah.
That feels unnatural, and same was happening even when I was doing the stop and go traffic situation, where I had kept the sensitivity setting of the. By the way, you can do that with the ADAS setting. So if you have adaptive cruise control on, you can set the sensitivity of responsiveness, as in how quickly do you want it to respond to changing traffic conditions. The acceleration can also be calibrated all through the touchscreen, where you want to set it. Do you want it to pick up very quickly to get back up to the set speed, or do you want it to take its time and go more naturally? That's something you
that
can
is
do
over and above the follow distance that you can set
from the steering itself.
from the steering itself, which I find slightly funny because the minimum follow distance is 2 Carnival lengths.
2.5, I think.
Yeah, which is what, 35-40 feet, which is where at least, if nothing, minimum 2 rickshaw
Aram se.
will just try and squeeze in. And again, that entire rigmarole of someone cutting you off, the car emergency braking, all of that happens. In Indian conditions, unless I'm driving on clearly marked open highway, something like the Yamuna or something like the Samriddhi Mahamarg, where it's just endless expanse of straight, I would probably turn off auto emergency braking, forward collision warning, which by the way was turned off by default on our press cars.
Yeah, that was in the presentation. I put that photograph in.
Right. So that happens. ADAS is limited by India for now.
Yeah, the system itself is sorted.
Yeah, ADAS as a technology works. India as a country is a challenge for the technology. That is where it is. On the safety front, you've got all your staples covered. The number of airbags you'd want, all the tech you'd want, your stability control, tire pressure monitoring system, everything's covered. There's no NCAP rating from Bharat NCAP yet, which is obvious.
There won't be one on the way either.
But globally, the car's been crash tested. It's proven to be safe, and safety has been taken care of. Now we move on to trying to sum up and trying to make sense of all that we've said. I want to boil it down to one question. Okay, maybe two. If you had an Innova Krista, would you consider buying this, considering the high cross does not really appeal to you? Or would you buy a Fortuner? Or see, you would say, okay, this is too expensive, I'll just settle at the high cross.
I don't think the high cross and this fall into the same consideration game anymore.
Okay.
Kia has made sure of that. This was the case with the previous Carnival, where the values with this Carnival are still very similar. And let's not forget, Kia, I feel, has done this very deliberately. They are not denying the fact that we are going to overcharge you for this car. They are ensuring that, one, existing Carnival owners are going to get a great resale value. That's what Toyota exactly did with the Innova. Residual value is guaranteed when your new car prices keep going up. That's exactly what the Fortuner also used with 9 bajillion kilometers is still going to be some absurd amount.
Yeah.
Because it ensures it. Same thing's going to happen over here. The experience is similar enough that certain buyers prefer it that way, where you don't have a great deal of differentiation. Like you mentioned, right? If I am an existing Carnival owner, will it feel like a massive upgrade in terms of the core experience? Maybe not.
No.
In terms of space and
But that is
practicality.
exactly something I want.
Yeah, and you're getting those additional bit of features, that upgrade in terms of design. It looks fancier. So it's like, I want those core values. Give me a minor change. I'm comfortable with this. I don't want my world to change. So that shift is happening. But if you're asking me that this is going to be a cross-shopping option between a Krista, iCross, and a Carnival, that's not even a possibility.
I'm talking about an upgrade, say.
Upgrade it is. Upgraded 100% is. Because the high cross's quality on the interior is a major reason why you wouldn't consider it. The Carnival's interior quality is not great for the price, but it's still good. It's still giving you better space, better boot space, larger size, lot more luxuries on the inside. The infotainment system is better. Kia Connect as a technology is far superior to anything Toyota offers. So that way, yes, it is expensive, but the high cross feels more overpriced at 40 lakh rupees on road. Never mind the Toyota salesman's attitude of telling you that I'm not going to discount you, teko kharidna hai to kharid, nahi to bhaad mein ja. Otherwise, the Carnival driver is still going to get a lot more extras because Kia is asking the exact same question. ठीक है, you feel we're overpriced, go buy something else now.
That is something that I pointed out the day the Carnival was launched. What are your options? If you want to say, I want to spend 40 lakh rupees, Toyota is waiting for your check. If you want to spend 1.4 crores, Toyota is again waiting for your check. For anyone who tells me that I can buy 2 high crosses for the price of a Carnival, I'll tell them I can buy 2 Carnivals for the price of a Wellfire.
Yeah.
And there is the difference between a Wellfire and a Carnival simply isn't worth 75 lakhs.
Yeah.
Is the difference between a 40 lakh rupee high cross and a 75 lakh rupee Carnival, is that delta worth it? Probably Kia is justifying that delta better.
Yes, I'll put it that way, 100%.
Right? So on the whole, the Carnival is possibly the best family car you can buy if you can digest its price tag.
Yeah.
If it is going to be the second, third or fourth car in your family, or even if you're doing really well and if you want this to be your first luxury car, you might have to compromise on what you think luxury is. If it is soft touch this, soft touch that, and really, like an elaborate, extravagant experience, the Kia is probably not that. But if you're putting functionality first, if you're putting utility first, if you're putting everyday usability first, the Carnival for that price is literally and figuratively a lot of car for the money.
And I think that is exactly what Kia's perspective is. They said point blank, we are not bothered with volumes.
Yeah.
We know the value proposition over here is something that is so unique that somebody who wants this kind of second seat focus is going to pick this, even if it's an additional car. And the positioning of the product is such that I think it just reminds me of what Kanan Gill had said in one of his specials. That real love is not don't leave me, I'll do the best I can. Real love is where will you go? That is the position that Innova has where it is.
Yeah.
And this is where the Carnival is at what it is. Yes, it could have been priced a little bit better, significantly better. But I feel like the kind of buyer that they're targeting with this is not that price sensitive to begin with. They are like, if the value proposition works, if it's doing what I want, I will pay the extra money.
And on that note, it's time to wrap this video up. If you've got any questions, queries or doubts, please leave them in the comments. I don't think we've missed out on anything, but in case there are specific questions, we're more than happy to answer that. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.